Happens.
Saturday morning. I
Happens.
don't have
Was
coffee.
it happy sound
Yeah.
or not so happy?
And we still have snow on the rooftops.
Really?
That's Austria, Vienna, snow. That's
No.
surprising in a nice way.
So when was your first snow this winter?
Oh, I
This
see it
autumn?
Yeah,
started. Nice.
Yes.
yeah. It is the first snow for me.
How do you feel about it?
Pretty excited.
Nice. Audience,
Now
do
I
you
have
Just
have?
wanna go.
multiple voice of yours in my head.
That's a
That
good
means we're
sign.
ready to start.
Yeah.
Yes. Then let's start. Welcome everyone. Welcome to X Technology session. Today is our 16th session, which is a bit different than usual. Today we will talk about tech interviews. We have two experienced developers, one experienced data scientist, and we will hear their stories about tech interviews and their perspective. So, guys, introduce yourselves.
Hey guys, good morning. I'm Alex. I'm gonna actually have a first talk today. I'm a software engineer with more than 10 years experience in mostly from JavaScript. Now switching to other technologies. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Dmitro. I'm a software engineer as well as Alex, and I have more than 10 years of experience. And in my career, I conducted a lot of interviews and tried to pass a lot of interviews myself, build a couple of teams by hiring a lot of people. So I think I have something to say today.
Thank you, Igor.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Igor. As Mila said, I'm a data scientist. I also have quite some experience being a data scientist and a business or systems analyst before. And today I will also share my experience regarding the interviewing process from both sides, being an interviewer and interviewee.
Thank you. Should we share a sum of your interviews done so far? So it's matter of hundreds, right?
Yeah,
Or we will
maybe
keep
maybe.
it as a secret.
I think let's keep for dessert maybe.
Okay.
So I can maybe start with my part.
Sure.
So these technologies you probably know, but if you're watching us first time, that's actually our main team, and we are doing these events bi-weekly, bi-monthly, whenever we're able to do so. And I'm Alex, like I just said, and I wanted to say a few words today about my experience with interviews. Actually, my story is gonna be having two goals. One is to provide some hints on JavaScript interviews based on my past experience, and also reflecting on that. So little more words about myself. I said that my most background is JavaScript. I came from this land and was actually started with a front end, but then switched to backend and to DevOps. So now I'm actually in a even other stack than that. I'm in the Java and Golang. That is all cool, and still, most experience I had with the interviews is JavaScript. I think I've done them a lot. Actually, I will say some numbers in a second. Just to finish a part about myself, I just to finish introducing ourselves, maybe myself. I actually it's all related. My background and the interviews, and why is that? Is because somewhere in time, like around 5 or 6 years ago, I wanted to find an interesting activity, side activity for myself, not being just a software engineer, but also maybe doing some lessons, and that's where I ended up. I actually started doing one-on-one lessons first, and for that I started collecting these different interview questions. So that's how but it also combined with my past passion of having multiple interviews at the time. But that's I'm gonna say in a second. So that's a little about my experience teaching and learning. That's my passion. Open source projects, as the one that you attend right now. And a little bit of community work. I really I enjoy writing articles, some open source libraries, and performing meetups, and even a conference. But that's just one of a kind in my past career. Why am I doing interviews, and how often do I do interviews? When I was younger, I actually did quite a lot of that. I participated, I think, at least once in a month in an interview, and I thought in my head that a reason for that is, to gain an understanding what the market wants, what the market needs from a candidate. But that's what I thought at that time, and I think the reality is just I like to see other projects, to gain some adrenaline from new meetings, from meeting new people and companies, and it's indeed interesting to understand what are the projects around, and maybe I can find the best project for myself. So I was in search, let's say like that. Those are some numbers. I counted that roughly. I think I've been a candidate around 300 times, and also interviewed for my company around that number, also around 300 times, let's say like that. And if you see, the conversion rate is around 30 successful. I have around 6 or 7 companies in my LinkedIn experience. So some of those were rejected by me, but mostly I was rejected actually. But that's, I think, normal numbers. But just for you to know what I came from. And most interviews, as I said, I was doing with JavaScript. That's because I spent a lot of time in this land. And let's just today for this for my part, let's just imagine that we have 1 hour of a JavaScript interview, and I'm gonna try to say a few words how that might look like. And that is vary a lot from company to company. But and also from because some companies have like a multiple stages of interviews. I think Igor is gonna talk today about this structure more deeply. But let's imagine we have just 1 hour. We are as a candidate, and let's let me just picture this. I think now it fits the screen fine. I will just zoom it in a little bit. So we have 1 hour, and this hour is actually too less time to know a candidate, but still something you could learn from this meeting. So basically, you start with an introduction that always some nice hello words, and talking about yourself, about projects that you participated. I actually, as an interviewer, I like. I think that's correct word. As an interviewer, I like to ask questions like, what was the most exciting technical thing that you have been working on in your past experience? And that is a smooth, smooth in my opinion, a movement to a next part, which hopefully is going to be a main part of the interview, because if you're looking for software engineer or JavaScript engineer, hopefully that would be the biggest part of the interview. So it would be great if we could spend 45 minutes in talking about different technical stuff. And during this part, you also will know some important for a candidate skills like social skills, how a candidate work in a team, maybe what was his experience, was he an agile team ever, or never meet this technique before. And of course, last part is a feedback, when you say some also warm words to candidate, and as an interviewer or as a candidate, you expecting some good words from a company. So actually, immediate feedback is the biggest thing that you can earn from interview, because in this 1 hour you get some impression, both of you, one on a company, another on candidate, and what you have in mind you can just drop to your to the team that you are meeting on, and that would probably give you more information than the next 3 months in this company. So that's a very important part in my opinion. Actually, what I just explained, I previously also created this small document. It's basically the same structure, but also with some JavaScript questions. I will leave a link to that maybe after the talk. But that's basically the same stages divided a bit differently, and with some examples of what are the questions or the topics could be during this part. And as I said, indeed, that varies from company to company a lot. And like I can recall different types of interview in my career, and I will not say any names on companies, but maybe you will recognize some. So one of the well, I find it actually interesting and useful, but it's also very difficult for a candidate. It's a kind of algorithmic tasks during the interview. You probably heard about writing sort algorithms and that stuff. It's not always, of course, this. And as a software engineer, I like these algorithm tasks a lot, but too bad for myself, I don't practice them too much, even at my work. I think it's very rare actually to use these algorithms, but the way of thinking in algorithm is very natural to software engineers as well. So that's nice but very challenging type of interviews. And during this kind of interview, you probably will be proposed to write some function that makes let's say sort a bubble sort, for example. And then during this task, you can also talk about the complexity of this function, or this method that you wrote. I put here this name, LeetCode. So actually, there are plenty resources that can help to train for this kind of interviews. So LeetCode is one of the examples. I can recall now HackerRank, but can also find different other nice platforms where you can practice it. And the last word about that is big companies, without names, they prefer these tasks a lot. And if you are going for a big company, one of the biggest companies, then probably you would like to practice a bit with a LeetCode. I would just myself, maybe if that was the plan for myself, I would spend like a 3 or 2 months just doing tasks regularly, and then you get this skill, and that would be much less effort during the interview. Next thing was that's one of the best interviews I had. Pair programming with a TDD. And that was very nice. So it's not like writing a big, very complex algorithm, but actually I had an interviewer who I talked with, and he just shared an editor with me, and I can actually show maybe this resource if that would be useful for you. It's called a call-up edit. So it just a simple syntax highlighting document in which you can both type in any language. So imagine you just share this link with a candidate, or it's shared with you. It depends on which side you are, and then you start in writing some code together. It should not be indeed algorithmic, but it's nice just to pair on that. And yeah, you during this solving of this task, you of course ask questions. You think how to evolve your code. So I loved it, this interview a lot. I think I had it once, maybe twice during this number of interviews, but I enjoyed it a lot. And yeah, if the feedback is also positive, not necessarily successful for you as a candidate, but it gives you a lot. Like you actually feel like you learned a lot during this interview. Going next, once I had a very nice assignment that was the assignment, but during the interview, so it was not a homework or something like that. So I was given a source code before the interview, and I could pull it out, maybe could learn it a little bit. And during the interview, the interviewer asked me to fix some bug in this code. So start the project, and then he sees how I understand the project and where I'm gonna fix in this bug or implementing the feature. As a matter, it was a small task, but I also like this. It's close to code, and that's what I like as a software engineer. And this one particular example is it gives you, like it's closer to the real life than many others, like than algorithms for sure. I think one of the round on the previous example was also a technical design, and that part I screwed out a lot. So it was next stage, as I said, and the guy who was interviewing me, he proposed to create a system, create some project, and well, not like doing the whole code in one, but to think about what would you need to make this platform work or make this project work, and you can go as deep as you can during this assignment. But yeah, that I felt it it was very difficult, but I think it's a matter of practice. If you practice this skill, that it will be quite easy. I think I'm not gonna go into details more on this technical design, but the reason for that is the Dima actually have something to say about this part, I believe. Okay, next part, A/B tests. A/B tests everywhere. I'm not saying any names, but I guess you know it. Yeah, it's including how they work. How would you implement A/B testing platform for your source code? So that's interesting, but it's very company specific. I think it's a very rare actually question, but actually that gives another thought, a good thought, I think. Know a company that you're interviewing for. Some companies just crazy about A/B tests, let's say, and if you know it up front, of course, you can prepare yourself. You can learn about how to implement some things. Some some caveats that you need to be worried about. Okay, next one. Also one of my favorites, humiliation type of interview. When I was younger, again, that I experienced a lot yeah, I don't want to generalize it to some companies, but sometimes when let's say the interviewer is not mature, maybe not enough mature to hire candidates, I think it's very common that he drops a difficult question at you and expects you will just know some stuff. I can recall one interesting task that was a question was for some JavaScript JavaScript position interview, just JavaScript engineer position interview. The task was to select how to imagine some HTML structure with some styles on top of that, and then the question was, how can I move the element outside of some container by applying some styles. That was I mean, I don't remember the concrete description of that, but I remember that the answer was very complex, and I was lucky because I read a day before an article about that, but that was a very very unusual scenario, I think. Yeah, and finally, the interview type that I like a lot is, and I prefer the most, I think, from this list is a soft talk interview. That's that's the best you can have. I think it's when no particular technical questions are asked. Maybe some like some interesting questions. Oh, have you tried this? I don't know, VS Code plugin, Visual Studio Code plugin. How do you find this tooling? How do you debug Node.js? That kind of things. They're not necessary technical, but it usually for me is when you see some sparks between you and interviewer or candidate, and that is a good indication of that a good interview is going on, and it doesn't give any pressure mostly. So yeah, that's my favorite type of interview, and actually I think I've been most successful in these types of interview myself. Now about technical questions. If we're talking a little bit about JavaScript interview, how do I know what questions? Well, from the number of interviews, of course, kind of collected them a lot, and for my teaching experience also, I started making a document with all these questions, and I basically filtered different questions that I found on the internet and put them on one big document. I think you will be able to find it after the talk in by following some of these links. I got an impression that it's very limited list of common questions that you can be asked during the front-end candidate interview. So I have actually a form. I've done a form myself. I will also paste it in a chat after a few minutes. So you can also help to fill it in, or if you don't want to do that, you just feel free just to. Let me actually. There should be results. Let me quickly open the results. Responses. 1 second, should be working now. No, it's not working for some reason. I will reshare my screen, so please be careful. It's my buddies here. Now you should see some results in a second. So let's go quickly through the most interesting parts. So you see there are not much people responded that, but I try to send it to different channels. So luckily, maybe in the future I will have more and more results on that. So I like some of these questions. Actually, some of them might be outdated already, but when did you have the latest job interview? And you see that it's divided pretty much on thirds. Like more than a year ago, it's 20% right now. This year, 40%, and this month, 20, almost 30%. So most of the people been at least once interviewed during the last year, which I think is very expected. Which position have been interviewed last time? That a question just indicating who participates in this survey, and you see it's a very different background: junior, middle, senior, some architects as well. Did you like the interview? Most people liked it. That's very nice to see. Actually, did you pass the interview? And then it's completely 50-50. That I also admire this result. Now talking about some technical questions. So I'm not sure how relevant these questions still are. I find it relevant myself, but I'm not doing that much interviews right now. So also a little bit out of JavaScript. Yeah, it might be a little outdated, but I think as this one. So this is basic JavaScript questions, and as you can see from this, and again I will send a link for you maybe to explore. Basics are asked a lot. Almost 100, I think, percent. Well, 88 in here, but if you collect all of those, it will be almost every interview for JavaScript ends up with some JavaScript basic question. Yeah, like closure, and closure actually is the most popular type of question in the JavaScript interviews. Yeah. And I remember myself asking a lot of questions about that, and it gives you a nice impression on how a candidate actually understands JavaScript, because closure is very natural and most natural, maybe one of the most natural things to JavaScript. So yeah, that's with this question you can also start a conversation about different parts of JavaScript. So that's a nice question indeed. Some prototypes, that's some advanced topics I called. API, browser API, yeah, that matters, and as well as HTML and CSS, almost 50% of people answered that. Promises, sync patterns, as we can see in this survey, is very important. It's kind of related to closures as well. But yeah, sync patterns are not the simplest to understand for junior developers as well, but not only for middle engineers. Yeah, so having these statistics, let's say, if you don't feel comfortable with the promises, yeah, just it makes sense to spend some time on some practical tasks on that. So yeah, that's some pure JavaScript questions. I will skip this part. Some modern front-end technologies, we see that React is winning, but we know that, I think, already without this survey. Some different patterns, Flux, Redux, TypeScript is asked a lot, and we know that TypeScript is nowadays almost a standard, standard for JavaScript world. So I think at least half of open source new libraries using TypeScript. Yeah, some classical dependency injection questions asked. These are specific to Node.js questions, so let's not stop on those. And some common programming questions also been yeah, you can see the different topics there. Okay, let me switch to my other screen in a second. Should be okay. Yeah. So let's recap this a lot. So for JavaScript interview, it's very important, I think, to know the basics. And for these basics, it can be closures, like we said, some async await patterns. Sorry, just asynchronous patterns in JavaScript. A DOM API is asked a lot, as well as HTML and CSS. My favorite question for HTML and CSS, because it's still, it's related to JavaScript. You don't have to be an expert in HTML and the CSS language, but it's very close to browser, very close to JavaScript. So it's very good when a candidate at least knows some basic stuff. My favorite question about HTML is how do you say that, selector, CSS selector specificity. Yeah, that question I like a lot. It has just some categories and can be nicely explained in programming terms. Yeah, and don't forget about other stuff. Of course, as a junior engineer, you probably would not be asked about architecture questions and some DevOps practices. Yeah, be careful, because that can be asked later on in your career. So yeah, it's better to keep on practicing and keep on reading more material. Almost done here. Last part, not least important, of course, very important. But during all of these questions, what I ask, or what I'm looking as an interviewer from a candidate, is of course not knowing all of these JavaScript basics or advanced techniques of JavaScript DevOps questions. I think that's my personal opinion, how a person works in a team, if he can help, he or she can help can quickly start working with the team. And because as a software engineer, at least right now, I don't spend like 100% of my time just coding. It includes a lot of different other tasks. But yeah, of course, it's great if you have some technical background. But I think many, yeah, don't want to know. I don't know percentage. More than 50%, let's say, time that I spend on work is not just programming. It includes writing documentation, for example. Also, even interviewing candidates. Why not? Understanding the project that matters a lot, and that derives from a perspective how do you have a match with the people with a new team that you are coming into. And yeah, some hints on that part. So soft skills, that's a very broad term, but that's what I'm looking from a candidate when I'm having a conversation with. It's great when a candidate prepares a little bit and understands some company background, as a, this example with A/B test, for example. It's yeah, it's great when a candidate has prepared and already knows business stack, maybe even technical stack, so it's easier to understand if that's a match or not match. Give a feedback on questions and tasks that you receive as a candidate, because yeah, even if you don't know how to write a bubble sort, you can say some, yeah, I just use a JavaScript sort of built-in sort function. So that's not a good answer, I think. But but yeah, just give a feedback that gives a lot of information about yourself and to an interviewer. And the point is not to be hired, right? The point is to find a best place for you to work on, to grow yourself, to develop yourself, but also to help these people. So I think the idea is for you to have fun and grow your career, and that should you perceive. So giving as much feedback and asking for much feedback on the interview is crucial, I think. And in most times, that's a very good sentence that I learned from my um, from one of my colleagues on the interview. He said that during this last session, on the feedback session, he asked, hey, don't you have any question to ask? That could be the last chance we meet. And that's a very good point, actually. That's sometimes, very often, so indeed last chance to meet this particular person. And yeah, maybe in company context. So yeah, feel free to ask anything, and you will be surprised how much you can get back from it. Bring your questions, of course, to that I think relates. Be positive. That gives the best match. Yeah, I mean that all depends. You don't have to be positive if you are not feeling that, but that helps a lot. That opens some doors between you and the candidate. So that's nice. Yeah, and the last question in here is I like it also a lot. I know that sometimes it doesn't feel very nice when it's asked these questions like goals and in your career and stuff. But that I like a lot, because actually this is simplest from this big list. Which resources you follow to learn new technologies. And yeah, the answer is usually very simple, right? You watch some courses, and pretty sure nowadays everyone does. So yeah, just mention some resources that you like and that you follow, and that would open some opportunities. Yeah, that's it. Kind of quick summarize. JavaScript basics, what the JavaScript developer might know during the interview will be asked for sure is JavaScript basics, HTML, CSS, any types of that we discussed. Know the project that you are interviewing for. That helps a lot. Soft skills, just be positive, and that will be perfect match your future interviews, and some resources that I will post right after this talk. Hey guys. Anything you have
Great talk.
you not agree? Yeah.
Actually,
I
feels
just,
very motivating.
Yeah, I have one question. I still haven't heard your best question for the JavaScript interview. What's your favorite question?
Good one. Thanks, Dima. Yeah, I have a few favorite questions. If I can share my screen again, I will try to write it. So yeah, let me open the JavaScript console, and because it's just easy. So the question about closures, right? I said that the closure is nice technique in JavaScript. Usually, I think one of the most popular questions is yeah, sorry, I now can actually scroll up, but yeah, let's do some cycle here, e less than 10, and then e plus plus, right? And then you say that let's well, actually that also covers the asynchronous nature of JavaScript. So let's create some set timeout function here, and let's make it old school function in here, and now let's put some timer in here, and let's output the console of the index. I know this is very stupid answer to a question. What is your favorite JavaScript question? But indeed, this is most popular. So if you learn and understand this, that will be, I think, it will be asked in a big percentage of the interviews. So yeah, my favorite question is this, I think, like what would be the output of this code, why it would be, and how to fix it. Let's just run it.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, it's yeah, people now I think not very happy with this question because of many reasons. So old style syntax in here, but yeah, it just to see how people react on that question, even with old style function already gives you some information, and then you can start talking about different stuff. Yeah, that's one of my favorite.
Not sure if I understand, but whatever.
Yeah, me neither. Never understood this.
You know, you don't know JavaScript.
Yeah,
sure.
of course. You don't know JS. There's a separate.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
But I really like your point, Alex, about not thinking about being hired, but thinking about improving your experience and career. I think that's the right attitude. So, yeah. But that means that you probably should always have a plan B, so that you are not desperate on the particular interview.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, great talk. I don't know, you kind of shared a couple of interesting stories. Do you have some other prominent, or I don't know, the one that you super liked or you didn't like, maybe being an interviewee? The one about humiliation, I don't know.
Yeah. I have one example, but maybe we can keep it to the final part if we don't forget it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
For the dessert.
Thanks, guys.
So let's go to Dima's story.
Yeah. So I'm not going to share anything because, well, I didn't prepare any presentation. I just wanted to give you maybe a new perspective on how to conduct technical interview for example, a JavaScript engineer position, right? So how do I do it? And I've come to this point by conducting, I think, throughout my career, more than 500 interviews. So I started with just asking some basic questions for JavaScript, like we just seen here that Alex just shared, and then maybe something about HTML, and then CSS, of course, the selectors, how they work, and maybe some of the frameworks that people have used in the past. But that seems to be a little boring. And at some point, I thought, okay, maybe I could spice things up a little bit and create like a small, try to develop a small application on the interview with the candidate, but not writing code, but just reasoning about which approach should be taken in which part of the app. So I always like to start the interview to try to settle everything in a good manner, and that's why a good thing here to do is just say, okay, welcome to the interview, and just always point. I always point that I don't like hard technical interviews, and this would be more like a conversational one. So please feel free to stop me anywhere, and then just don't be prepared for digging up some specific JavaScript caveats from your memory, because that's not the point of my interview with you today. Then, of course, I would like to understand the background of the interviewee, just maybe not to startle them with something that they haven't worked with ever. That's another good thing to do. And of course, I would share a couple of words about the plan that I'm having. So, for example, how would I do that? Is just as I would say, okay, let's just have a small thought experiment, and we will develop an application today with you. And imagine that I will be your product owner, just bringing you some requirements for the application that you are in the lead of. So you are one developer in the lead of the app that I'm bringing you today. And then I would give an overview of that thought experiment. So, okay, we have an app that will track your, let's just, for example, I'm improvising right now. So let's just put it, okay, we need to develop the application that will work on iOS, Android, and the web, of course. And we want to track, I don't know, a specific delivery. So, for example, we have an API somewhere that is just by the identification of an item gives you the status of the delivery. Just the status, like it's either delivered or out for delivery or still in transit or haven't been picked up yet or whatnot. So the next thing I would like to hear, what I would say, and I would like to hear back from the candidate is, how would you start working on that, given that you have a non-functional requirement of using React Native, for example? At this point, people usually start asking questions, why React Native? Because, well, they could have different background, but I would, of course, try to adjust. For example, if I'm interviewing somebody for Flutter, which I've never done, but that could happen, I would say, okay, we can switch to Flutter and whatnot. But the next question I would ask is like, okay, how would you approach this application? Which components will you try to use? Which libraries that are out there would you like to use, and why? So for this introductory part, I will just take maybe 5 to 7 minutes, because that's, I guess, the most hard part, because we will have to gather everything together to get this application, at least the basics of it, at least the proof of concept out and working. And that would be the most, I would say, easy part, because many of the candidates that I interviewed would have done that before. But it's also a hard part, because you have to define the technology that you're using, why you're using it, and which components you're using. Then I could add some more functionality to the app and just say, okay, now I want to add a night theme for the application. How would you approach that? And there are a couple of ways specific for the tooling that we're using for developing this application that could help us here. So, for example, how would you add this in React Native, and then how would you add it in Flutter, or how would you add it in a progressive web application or in a web application? Where would you store these configurations? How would you define that this user changed it or not? And then you can basically go in depth in this for whatever distance you like, and then see how your interviewee, the person you're interviewing, would respond, and you basically understand the width and the landscape of their knowledge in this particular technology. Then what you could also add is like, okay, now your API can only be called once a minute. So live data update for your end users is not possible. How would you approach that? And this basically adds a limitation to the system that, okay, you need to have some kind of caching, and you need to have some kind of daemon running, getting periodically this once a minute calls for you. How would you organize your tech stack in that case? Eventually, I would like to hear that, okay, we probably will need some caching mechanism. We probably need some middleware, like a database that will store the results between the our application and the end API that we are calling. So the choice of the database, of course, will matter for me. I would like to elaborate a bit more about database, and then I would ask, what if our application booms to 100 billion of users and we'll have too much traffic? How would we approach that, and so on and so forth? And what eventually I would ask after all this, if the person still sticks up to the level. So, for example, our application is so popular that other companies want to buy it and they would like to adopt it for their needs. How would you approach multi-tenancy? And that would be, I think, the end of the most hardest part of this technical design interview. And of course, that would what I would like to do is cap it to 30 minutes. So all these questions should be really short. Of course, you have to have a plan, but improvising is also fine. And of course, would like to leave some time for questions for the candidate to ask to me. And here are some tips that I like to ask when I'm an interviewee. So first, one of my favorite questions is, when I'm at the company, I would like to ask if there were, who is the last person to leave the company and why? Usually this question just shocks people because they don't remember this stuff. They don't know the true reasons behind why people leave. And if they actually, this gives you a good overview if a manager is present on the interview on how the management actually treats people in the company. So if they know everything about why people left, then probably it's a good company to work with. You might have a good experience with management there. If people just don't know what to answer, then for me, it will be a red flag. Yeah, of course, questions about tech stack are quite important, but I would approach it in something of a different manner. If this is a live app or a live system that's working, I would ask, what was the last downtime of your system and why? And how did you approach the evaluation of that downtime? Because that might give you a way better insight of how the system and how the developers operate in that system. And of course, will give you maybe some insights on how the on-call rotation, if there is one, works, and how they do postmortems, if they do them, or how do they approach maybe proactively these kind of things by conducting game days from case engineering practice. So these are the things that I usually ask, and I think they could be really of a value for you, if whoever is listening right now. I also had a lot of different kinds of interviews that Alex already mentioned. Stressful interviews, too informal, too many jokes interviews. I think the shortest interview I had was for one of the huge companies that the guy just asked me, okay, what is HTML? I just said, I don't understand the question. He said, structurally, what it is? I said, a tree? He said, yes, but more specifically, what it is? I said, I don't know. And the guy replied, it's a linked list, goodbye, and just hang up. And that was the shortest interview I failed in like 3 minutes. That was really fun. So don't be that guy. It's not really, it doesn't give you an overview of a person's experience just by asking one question. It just, you cannot do that. It's impossible. But yeah, keep in mind that this can happen. Don't be stressed by it. It's fine. It all will work out. So that was my talk.
Cool.
Thank you.
Great.
Can I ask something, Dima?
Sure.
Yeah, I have just 2 questions, I think. First, this kind of interview that you just described, this technical design I call, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Do you what type of developer or candidate you expect? And it shouldn't be junior, right? I mean, it just already should be some level of candidate in there.
Not really. I think I've conducted these interviews for junior level engineers as well, but the questions were quite easy. So I would throw out the application thing, and I would just stick to maybe a web part, only like a website, because if the person already had experience with it, of course, building websites. I assumed that I worked throughout all my career with web technology, so even junior people that I interviewed, they did understand how web stack works, so they could explain at least the structure of what would they like to see in the web application, how it works. So basically by server side, database, middleware, and HTML in the end, and JavaScript on the front end, right?
Mhm.
So if a junior person cannot explain this, I would try to, of course, give some hints on how this works, and maybe try to shift the direction of the conversation to something that they do know, and try to get the best info out of them in there. But yeah, the answer, I don't know how to do this, is also fine. Then I can elaborate a bit more on how would I approach this, and then we could, of course, go together in some details of maybe some aspect. For example, if a person knows only CSS, then okay, I would just shift to more talking to CSS things. And give, as a PO, I would give questions about, okay, now we need to we have a change of component library that we've used, or our designers made us new design. How would you approach that and whatnot?
So it's very flexible, yeah, and I understand. I think it's very cool. Yeah, another one, because I experienced this kind of interview once myself, and I actually hold it, I think. But do you think you can exercise, you can practice with something? Maybe you have some resources that you can help to prepare for that, or it's just your experience based on that?
Well, unfortunately, I haven't found any resources in that regard. So I've been an interviewee on a couple of these technical design interviews, and to be honest, I failed 75% of them, or maybe even more, or 80%. So yeah, I haven't found afterwards any resources to practice that, unfortunately. I would really like this resource to exist, so maybe it's something that we could do here in Next Technology, or maybe if someone wants to give us an insight, we could hold such a session, maybe live someday, or just record a video of it. Yeah. Well, that's not the point, right?
Do you make it anyhow visual, or you just talk? Do you make it visual, so you draw or write?
No, yeah. Well, if it's an offline interview, then of course I would use a whiteboard to draw stuff. But I found that it's quite hard to draw with your mouse during interviews with people who, well, when I'm an interview, I'm quite nervous about it, right? So then drawing with something that is not designed to be as a tool for drawing is not a very good idea. Especially all these sometimes these interviews, everyone has their own tool for drawing, and you are not familiar with the interface, so you just struggle through finding the blocks that you need to express the system and how it would work, because it's a new tool for you. So that gives you even more stress, and then your brain just freezes at some point. So no, I don't like drawing, because, well, if I would have a whiteboard and a marker, then it's fine. Without it, no.
Get it. Great, yeah. Thanks for sharing. It's pretty interesting, and also a very cool tip for the question, because it's like this question unites a couple of the ones which I usually ask. I usually ask separate, like are you hiring a new position, or someone quit, and so on and so on. But your question is the best one. Who is the last person and why he left?
Yes, great question. Let's move to Igor's talk and presentation.
Yeah, let me share it.
Can't wait.
Great. Yeah, so another presentation here. And yeah, I called it How to Hire a Data Scientist. So I will talk from the perspective of the company who is about to hire a data scientist. And I would just share my thoughts about it based on some experience. So during my career, I was an interviewee on a lot of interviews, and also I interviewed quite some people. And here are just my, maybe tips or just my talk about what I see is the optimal or the nice or the best way how to do it. Yeah, so first of all, the steps of the interview. So everything starts from a job description. You have to produce this document to start the whole process. Then you plan it. You should know when you need the candidate and when to start doing it. Then just look through the possible interview stages, decide what you need, what you don't. Then maybe the most interesting part is how to check the skills of the candidate. And finally, you should make a decision, and we're also going to talk about it. So the very first thing, job description, it all starts from this. Usually, most of the companies have this human resource department where people have templates, so they know how to do this job openings. But I think it's always nice when the team thinks a bit what exactly they need and create some draft where they put important things that they look in the candidate. And then together with this HR department, they can compile it in a nicely looking document, which could be posted online. And what I think is important when you create this draft of a document. So first of all, you want to hire reasonable people. And these people, when they browse the internet and look at different job openings, they look at responsibilities, so what the company expects from them. And to me, it's really nice that if there are some non-super generic responsibilities, because if I'm a data scientist and I'm looking for a job, and then in the job description will be written something like, well, we want you to analyze the data and build models. To me, it sounds very generic, and maybe it's of course not a red flag, but I will at least know that this company is probably not really sure why they need this data scientist, or maybe they just start the whole data transformation or whatever. So if I don't want to be the one who comes there and decides what you should do, then probably it's not your company. So if you have some specific things that you see that the candidate might be doing, I think it makes sense to put them. So if you know that you will have to maintain specific models, you should say it. If you will tell that there are a lot of things about data pipelines, also put it to the responsibilities. It will be just more clear. Also, another thing about the stack. So it makes sense, of course, to put your current stack, or if you don't have it yet, your desired one. And of course, if you have some legacy systems, you probably don't want to disclose it right away in the job description. But anyways, the candidate probably will know it either during the interview or in the first months of work. And I think it doesn't make sense to hide it before. So just be transparent. If you have something that you want to maintain, then just say about it, and maybe mention that it's not the whole work, but just a tiny bit. The next important thing to me is the way of work. So I think the candidate would be interested to know like what kind of teams you have, the size of the teams. Do you use Agile, Scrum, all these things? Are there any internal events, or how is how is organized the interaction between the departments, something like this. Then, of course, a very interesting thing which might attract the attention of the candidates is particular systems or products. So if you will say that our department or our team is working on, I don't know, on this specific mobile app or on this specific recommendation system, it will draw the attention of the candidates much more. So it's already some specific details, and the chance that you have more engaged and excited candidates will increase, I think. Also, something personal. If you, I don't know, if your team participated in the last internal hackathon in the company and you have won it, I think it's nice. It's a nice detail to share it because it also makes the job description quite personal and it will stand out from the others. Yeah, the next thing is the planning. So you probably most definitely you want to hire the person already tomorrow or even yesterday, but of course it takes time, and you have to think in advance for how long the whole process will take and when to start accordingly. If you're a bit bigger company, then probably you have a non-stopping process of hiring, because some people sometimes leave, or some teams grow and you want to get more people. So in this case, it's quite easy. You just get one of the candidates of this never-ending process. But otherwise, you have to think of how long this process might take, and yeah, plan accordingly, and also adjust your, I don't know, attitude maybe, and your even questions of the interview, so that you are able to hire a person in this period of time. Because if you want to hire like an ideal person who knows everything, but you have only 1 month, then probably it's not really doable. So you have to be very lucky. Also, this thing like about the hot pool of candidates. So if you already had previous interviews before and you like some people but did not hire them, I think it makes sense to ping them and ask how's it going. Maybe you want to talk with them once again because you already know them quite well, and if they are still looking for the opportunities, it will be just a bit easier for you and for them as well, and will take less time. Yeah, then we go closer to the interview process, and the very first thing is the screening. So usually there are quite some job applications on the job opening, and it could be hundreds or at least a couple of dozens, and it makes sense to screen them before contacting the candidate. And it's very nice if someone in HR could help you with that, because they have a lot of experience with screening resumes or CVs. So you just provide them the things that you're looking for in the candidate, and they will help you. And maybe they even have some automated tools which make life really easier, which are parsing the PDFs with resumes and extract, I don't know, some needed tags. But then, yeah, the stages of the interview, I think I have a couple of aspects to think a bit before creating the final set of stages. So first of all, I would need to know how tech I would like to go during the interview. Do I want to know the person from all the sides, like super comprehensively, how she or he codes, I don't know, exports the data, presents it, and so on? Or it could be a bit more shifted to the soft side, so like more about talking. I think I personally prefer it more, maybe, as Dima said before, and Alex as well. So maybe it's a trend. Then, yeah, where you have to define what exactly you want from a technical side. So is it coding? Is it system design, some theory? Maybe you need some additional information. Like, I don't know how good the person is in math or statistics or something like this. And also, and I think, is to define the interviewing team, because very often I see that the manager of the team thinks that he or she are responsible for everything. So they should hire people. They should, I don't know, create job description, conduct all the interviews, take this decision only on their own. And so it just like adds a lot of stress, and also it lacks, so it takes away the transparency from the team. Because I think if you're a manager and you're hiring the person to your team, it's completely okay to tell your current team that you're doing it, and even to ask for their help. They could also conduct the interviews. They can help you with some questions or looking at the assignments. And it just makes, I think, the whole process in the current team a bit more friendly, let's say. So the team members see that you're completely okay to ask for their help, and you can do something together. Yeah, so the steps, it all starts maybe from some introduction. It could be a separate interview. It could be a part of the first engagement. So usually that's the process when The candidate has the chance to tell why they are here and what do they want in the future. And you could also share, talk about the current status of in the company, about the project that you are hiring for, or why you're doing it, and so on. And usually when this is going well, I think that's the easiest part of the interviewing process for the candidate. And then there comes this technical part, and it could be like really different. I will try to talk a bit about the different variants on the next slide, but usually it takes the most of the time. And then there is this soft skill interview, or now it's super trendy to call it behavioral. So some companies really take it super seriously and create the use cases like, hey, you're in this situation, you have this and this, and what are you gonna do? To me, it's too official. I prefer to talk a bit more casual, but anyways. And then there might be some additional steps. So as I said, if you're, for example, the company who develops, new deep learning models, then you're probably interested in a more technical background of the candidate. So how good they are with math, statistics, architecture, and so on. It could be anything. So maybe linguistics if you're in a natural language process company. And also there are some steps that sometimes happen. So for example, meet the team. To me, it's a very nice step. When I hire, I try to convince my management that it's a necessary step. That's basically not a technical or soft interview. You just gather your current team and the candidate. You can go for a coffee or do an online coffee, and you just talk about different things, about life mostly. And this is a very important thing because, as Alex said, it's not always that we write the code. Most of the time we just sit there together and discuss some things, and it's very important that you're always on the same page, that you have the team that can communicate with each other, that there is no tension between the team members, that everyone is aligned and everyone is engaged, and there are some mutual interests. So it just makes your life in the company nicer. And I mean, you spend so many hours in the company at work, so that's an important part. And maybe sometimes there is this step, meet the CEO or some top manager. I think it's more popular in smaller companies where the top management are kind of the people who are the carriers of the current values. So they invented these values, company values themselves, and they want to keep them in the company, and they want to be sure that the new person who is being hired also has these qualities. And to me, it also makes sense. I think that's important when the top management is taking care about the people who they want to hire. But of course, it's possible only before there's some limits. So if you have, already 500 people, it's not reasonable for the CEO to be on every interview. Yeah, so about the tech skills, there are multiple ways how you could check the tech skills of the candidate. And also there are different candidates who prefer different things. So for example, home assignments for people who, for example, like me, I'm quite slow. I like to take my time to think about a bit. And for me, it's quite nice if I have an assignment. I just grab my cup of something, see it a bit, think how I would do it, and then implement it. And no one is looking how I'm doing, so I'm not stressed. This is one of the ways. There are some people who are more cool cats who like live coding, who maybe want to demonstrate how fast thinkers they are. And for them, it's completely okay to have these live coding sessions. And also there might be candidates who have lots of experience and they have a huge GitHub profile that can be just browsed, and maybe it's not even necessary to ask them for specific, for a lot of tech skills. And maybe, just a couple of words about the examples. So the home assignments, I personally think that this is from the hiring company perspective, I think that it's a very important step, because otherwise it makes it a bit harder to evaluate the candidate. I know that a lot of candidates don't like these home assignments because it takes additional time, so you can do it after work or on the weekend. That's why I think it makes sense to keep it really short. So you can explicitly say to the candidate, well, this is an assignment, and please do not spend more than, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours on it, because we don't expect you to do everything super neat and tidy. And another thing that I think, if you go for this home assignment, it makes sense to think it through. So what exactly it could be. So if, for example, if you're a bank and one of your tasks at work is scoring customers, then the nice home assignment will be just a simple scoring model. So you can give the candidate a very small data set, maybe a fake one, and ask them to score the candidates, how they will do it and approach it, just very quickly, quick and dirty. So don't ask for a clean solution. And then if you like it and you invite the candidate to the next stage, you can all together go through this code and discuss how the things were done. Or I don't know, if you're a company that writes chatbots, you can ask the candidate to create a very simple version of the chatbot, or even do some simple natural language processing. I don't know, build a model which defines some, I don't know, tone of the text. And I think it's quite a reasonable assignment. It just shows the candidate exactly what he or she might be working with in the future if they will be hired. And also it shows you how the candidate will approach the tasks which you are currently doing. So I personally don't like when the company gives you the things that I don't like in these home assignments. First of all, when the company just sends you a piece of data and tells, do whatever you want and present it to us, to me just shows that they don't know themselves what they can do with this data, and they expect the thoughts from you. I think it's just a bit of disrespect to the candidate. And the second thing is when the home assignment is completely irrelevant. It's like when you're hiring the person who will create the scoring, and you ask them to create a computer vision model. It's kind of fun, but it's just completely senseless, because that won't be the case when the candidate will work. And the live coding, actually maybe another home assignment might be some of the usual typical tasks on this code lead or Codility or HackerRank things. So if you want to just check how the candidate is coding in general, you can send them a small assignment for 20 or 30 minutes. It will be automated by these resources. And it could be something like write a simple function which will calculate, I don't know, correlation between two data sets, and and check that it works. So it's just also a very quick way to check the basic coding abilities of the candidate and not to waste a lot of their and your time. Live coding is something different. I honestly don't have too much experience, especially when I'm hiring people. I never ask for live coding. What I usually ask for is this home assignment, and then we go together to this assignment. And sometimes I ask, how would you do these things differently? And then it could be a bit of live coding, but not something from scratch. So I personally am not a fan of this, especially in data science world. I don't know, to me, the coding part is not the main one. I'm more interested in how people think and reason. And the third one, GitHub Profile. So it might be the case that you send the candidate the home assignment and ask them to implement it, but they tell you, well, I don't want to do it. I have a huge GitHub profile. If you want, you can browse through it and we can pick up some projects and talk about it. To me, it's completely okay. I understand if they don't want to spend time. In this case, we can really pick some of the previous projects and talk about it and look at the code together. I think it's completely okay. And no one prevents you to use all these combined. So as I said, it could be a home assignment, and then the candidate brings it to the interview, presents it, and then you do a bit of a live coding. And even then, you can ask the candidate, what was your last project that you liked? And then you will go through this project and do a bit of maybe even live coding there. So I think it makes sense to improvise and try all the things and see what works best. So just, a bit of wrapping up about the tech skills. So I think the most important thing is the relevant assignment. So as I said, if you're a bank, just ask about the things that you're going to do in a bank. It doesn't make sense to do otherwise. Next, reasonable theory. Today we have internet, we can Google everything. We can Google how functions work, the mathematical formulas, statistics things. I usually ask quite basic things, like, I don't know, if we're talking about data science, I just ask about classification models or regression models, or how you approach overfitting, or what do you think about the bias variance trade-off, these kind of things. To me, it's more important to see how the candidate understands these basic things rather than how to ask how, I don't know, exactly XGBoost algorithm works. To me, it just makes no sense. Most of the people just use it, and they don't have to know exactly how it works. But of course, there are specific positions where you need to develop new algorithms, and then it could be different. And the next 2 points are applicable if you're hiring someone a bit more senior. So this solution design, and it's a bit different. It's not a system design. It's more like if you're a data scientist and you build some model, how will you turn this model into some business solution? So usually the company has a problem to score the candidates. And for this, machine learning helps with the sum model, but then it's really important how you will combine the needs of stakeholders, your model, even how will you get the data, what data you might need, what are the edge cases of it, what questions are the most important from the stakeholders, how you will answer them, how will you evaluate your solution, validate that it's correct or not, how will you maintain your model, all these kind of things. To me, it's also quite important and interesting, honestly. And the candidate's experience, if you want to make the candidate a bit less stressed, you just ask them about, you just look at their CV and see something that you like, and ask them about it. And the candidate will tell you a lot of details about it, and also he or she might be more excited because that's something they've already implemented and it's kind of already part of their life. And they will definitely be less stressed because you are not asking them about something new that they didn't work about before, but that's something that they already did, and you will just see the way of thinking of the candidate and their skills as well, but in a bit less stressed atmosphere. Right, then these soft skills or behavioral skills. I point out these 4 bullet points or elements. First of all, the communication. I'm really interested how the candidate talks with people, how they present the results. Can they talk in both technical terms and more business terms? How they communicate with people from a different domain. So, I mean, it's not very nice when you have a great technical data scientists, but they cannot talk with business people because they think that business people are too stupid, that if they don't understand technical terms. It happens like all the time, and I think it's, to me, it's more important than if the candidate can find the same language with different people rather than they are super tech savvy. So I see how they communicate personally and to the stakeholders and to the team. And also the way of work. It's really important if the candidate is used to work in a team or they are like one-team players. Also, what do they think about the current framework that you use at work? I don't know, Scrum, Kanban, these kind of things. So do they like to share their findings? Are they willing to, I don't know, are they more proactive or reactive? So how much time you will spend aligning with them. So these kind of things are important to me. And usually you can just say, please explain me what is your current team? How do you communicate with other people? How do you present the results and discuss them and so on? And then if the candidate is talkative enough, you can get all the needed information from it. And these 2 things, challenges and goals, that's a bit controversial. So a lot of candidates hate these questions. What is the biggest challenge you had in your previous career, or what do you think you will do in 3 years? Yeah, I think these questions are a bit cheesy, but if I'm hiring a person, I might ask 1 or 2 of them just to see, first of all, how they react. Are they really pissed or not? And then I might be really, I am really interested of, I don't know, the mindset or attitude of people. So if they don't really have straight goals, like clear goals, so that might be a thing to, not to concern, but to take into account. And also for me, it's really interesting how people overcome different challenges, because I could even use it for my own experience. And the challenges will be a part of the daily routine. So it's important that people at least are not afraid of it and are open to talk about the previous ones. Yeah, we're coming up to the final step. So this decision. So who makes the final verdict? I think it's different. It depends on the company. It could be a manager of the team that is hiring. It could be a CEO. It could be the team. I think it's one of the maybe optimal ways when the team gathers and just discusses briefly. Do they like the candidate? If not, what are the things that they are not sure about? Of course, the final verdict might be coming from the manager, but it makes sense to ask all the team members because that's mostly them who will work with this candidate in the future. And maybe this vetoing part, if some of the team members feels that this candidate is not the good fit to the team of whatever reason, then maybe it makes sense not to proceed because it might introduce just some more tension into the future team life. And when you take this decision, you of course look at these necessary things that you're looking in the candidate. So maybe you want to hire a team lead, maybe you want to hire a very technical person, so you need someone to code. Or maybe you want to hire the person who will add a more nice atmosphere to the team, which is also really important. And of course, some stop factors. So here's an example from data science world. So to me personally, it will be, I would say it will be a stop factor. The person will try to estimate classification models with some metrics which are meant for regression models. And sometimes it might happen. I mean, it's not something critical. You shouldn't shoot the candidate. To me, it also makes sense not to hide it from the candidate. If I see that this is happening, I would probably stop the interview right away and not wait for another hour to tell the candidate that we will call you and not do anything. I think that transparency is important. And if you see that something is going wrong right away, you just say that, well, I'm sorry, I think that this is not going to work because of this and that, but also give your feedback. So I think that you have to read about classification and regression models a bit more, and then we can have this another discussion. And maybe you could provide a bit more recommendation to the person, because you just put yourself into their shoes. They came to the interview, they don't know everything. They thought that they are prepared, but suddenly something that they don't know, and you can just guide them where to go to get this information so that they will be more prepared for the next interview, maybe not in your company, but in some other company. So just pay it forward, right? So I think that's most of the things that I wanted to share. Hopefully now you will hire the best data scientist you need. And let's discuss it all together.
Hey there. Thanks, Igor.
Now we know how to hire the right data scientists.
Now we have different perspectives. We have a thought experiment, we have Alex's stories, we have something about data scientists. And I think that might be the right time to maybe discuss some stories.
The funny ones, you
know. Sorry, I have I thought I'm muted. So Igor, I have just one question.
Sure.
Thanks for the talk. Very interesting. It's kind of from a bigger perspective than than mine, for example. Yeah, that's kind of, in my opinion, it shows the way for a company to find data scientists, exactly how you said it in the title. So, which part of that process is you like the most? Is that yeah? Yeah, because it's very difficult, I guess, to go through all of that just by one person, and usually many people involved, right? There is a hiring managers, yeah, many people, many departments. So, which part do you like the most of that?
Yeah, I personally like the most the exact interview with the candidate. So let's say the interview processes that I take part in were not super long. Usually we had one talk, which was both technical and soft skills and design things. So it was maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours sometimes. And during this talk, we could just get to know the candidate. And to me, that's the most interesting. And I usually enjoy all of it, starting from technical things, then going a bit more to I don't know, communication things. I'm mostly interested in how person. So how can person grab this technical knowledge, like this machine learning model or data science analysis, and create a business solution out of it? What do they think about it, and how they will try to implement it and talk about it with different people? To me, that's the most important and exciting. And yeah, I'm not a fan of asking like, what is your favorite model, and tell me how it works. Although, yeah, it might be interesting, but I try to make it a bit faster and then go to the questions of importance. Like,
Cool, thanks.
what is the meaning of life?
Yeah, and just a small remark or a small comment. I actually, my friend shared with me a task as a self-assignment for engineer and manager, and it was interesting. The task was it explains the situation in the company, and then the assignment is how you gonna hire 10 more engineers or 10 more, I don't know, data scientists. So that's yeah, interesting. Different roles, different approaches.
Yeah, I agree. I also like these assignments for potential product owners. It's like we have this system, and please tell us about, I don't know, 3 possible features that you want to implement, and tell you why you want to do it. That's also quite challenging.
Okay, yeah, back to weird interviews, right?
Yeah. Stories.
Yeah, just two small things from my side. So once I had, and I actually, when we've been preparing for this session today, I already heard some related stuff from you guys. But once I had an interview, and actually, the whole morning was not going well for me. So yeah, I was in the traffic for long, and then I had to go to another part of a city for the interview. So when I came by, basically the guy was. Yeah, he felt like less experienced than I. But still, like he was the only one interviewing me, and he was kind of tough from the beginning. Like was very yeah, pessimistic, let's say, looking at my resume, and yeah, I already saw that would not work very well. And then one of the first questions. Yeah, I think was something about. Yeah, actually, I screwed it up, obviously. But he asked something like, "Yeah, what's the difference between raster and canvas and vector graphics?" So I could not explain that. It was, I think, was not part of my expertise at that time. And the second question really killed me was yeah, I'll just write some sorting algorithm, something like that. So I said, no, I'm not going to do that. It's just,
Not gonna try it.
yeah, just stand up. Basically, that was a very quick thing. Yeah, but that was not the weirdest. That was just, I think you have to be, yeah, it's better if you positive for the interview, and traffic doesn't help much, traffic jams, but also was not much from the beginning. So it's all my fault, of course. Yeah, the next one was in my early days, my early experience. So yeah, also my fault that I did not, Google enough, did not research enough what the companies. So when I went to their office, and the office was actually some apartment in a historical building, like on the second floor in the center of the city. And yeah, I just went to this second floor. It was just a normal door to the apartment. And many people, the whole team there, around 7 or 6, I don't know, 8 people maybe, in the different rooms. So it was actually sort of nice, but that was not what I expect from a normal company, I would say. And also the furniture was everywhere. Like, I mean, it looked like a normal apartment, let's say. And yeah, eventually we just say hi to the people and met me, or maybe just one person met me, and I thought, yeah, this is a guy who's gonna interview, probably CTO of this small company, I don't know. So he invited me to a room. It was a biggest room probably there, and I think there was in this big room there was a table almost the size of this room. It was like a really big, huge table, probably also historical one. I don't know. So he, yeah, we sat there like I think yeah, maybe close. It doesn't matter where we sat. And the first question was like, yeah, so you came for the interview. So why do you think you deserve this money? It was like, what? So that pissed me off immediately. That kind of stressful interview.
Oh,
I think,
man.
yeah, I had to defend immediately, right? And actually, it was yeah, I was immediately went out of my yeah, normal feeling. So I said, yeah, what do you mean? Like that was a position, right? I found a position that was money there put. So yeah, that's kind of. I think it was just a normal logic evolved, right? And then a guy continued basically doing the forced questions, like a really stressful questions. So in 10 minutes, like when it really it was so tough between us because it was not going well, let's say. And yeah, in 10 minutes he said, okay, that was a stressful interview, you didn't pass, sorry. It was like interesting.
It was it for developer?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was for developer. Yeah, and the guy was not technical. I think it was just yeah, maybe not CTO, maybe just CEO, business owner. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this stress interviews I also had one time. This kind of stress interview, but it was not for a developer. I think that was like many years ago. I wasn't sure what I'm gonna do in the future, and I think this was some kind of sales representative. And the guy just started right away to put me into uncomfortable situation. I don't know, like, why is your car that shitty, or why don't you make more money, or why did your father didn't buy you another flat? So, I don't know, but it was clear for me that he just tries to put me out of my mood, and that just helped me to be. And actually, I got the offer, but fortunately, I didn't accept it.
Yeah, I had a great interview once with a company that were the guys, the technology people there. It was a consultancy, right? So they were working on different projects for the company clients. And they were like evangelists of trunk-based development, which is a good thing. Well, trunk-based development, I think, deserves a good place in the whole IT world. It's a nice approach. But the way how and I was really unfamiliar with that approach at the time. So I was like all Git flow and and all that. And when I said, I'm just used to work in this manner, and they said, yeah, this is bullshit. I'm like, okay, why? Because trunk-based development. I'm like, okay, could you elaborate more? No, we won't. Bye. And they were really rude, like, you don't know this, goodbye. Okay. Goodbye it is then.
Subversion?
Yeah, of
Kind of
course.
trying to develop.
Yeah, they had SVN still, but it doesn't really matter. So you do trunk-based development in Git as well. The main idea behind this that is your main branch is always ready for deployment, right? So at any point in time, it's production ready. So it makes total sense when your team is small. When your team is big, it doesn't make any sense, of course. But the argumentation behind those guys was just terrible. So don't do that.
They're quite tough.
Yes, let's continue in our after party Telegram group. So if you want to join us further conversation, or you want to meet us live, you want to know some questions from interviews, join us.
Yeah, and there is a link also in the comments.
Yes, I think it's in the comments, so
follow it.
Here it is. Yes.
Yeah, we will be super happy to see and hear you there.
Yeah, in 5 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
See you there.
Please join us, and have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend.